Real coaching isn't about giving advice, it's about helping somebody reconnect with what they already know. People aren't looking to be fixed, they're looking to be heard. And that's exactly what today's conversation is all about. Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who want to get ahead and stay ahead, because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, they are always in the making. I'm your host, Damon Lemby, two-time best-selling author and CEO of Learn It, a live learning platform that has helped upskill over 2 million people over the past 3 decades. Joining me today is Kerry Rockers, an executive coach and HR veteran who's helped countless leaders show up with more intention, coach with more presence, and create teams where people actually want to stay and grow.
Think about what are some small things I can do to help make sure I understand what is important to this person in their work. And there may be things that come up like, wow, that is fascinating. I want to hear more about that, but we got to get on to X, Y, and Z. Let's go grab coffee later and talk more about it, or put that on the agenda for next time.
I'm going to ask Kerry to share her perspective on why coaching isn't about giving advice. It's about holding space for people to think out loud. How burnout often stems from disconnection, not just work overload. The difference between leading and managing, and why it matters more now than ever. How to turn a thinking about leaving moment into a real conversation that builds trust. And why HR's role needs to shift from enforcing policies to shaping culture and strategy. Now, you said that coaching isn't about fixing people. It's actually about helping them remember what they already know. What do you mean by that?
The basic premise of coaching is people come to coaching whole and resourceful and full of inner wisdom. And the process of coaching, the asking questions, the challenging in gentle ways, the sharing observations, all that helps to bring out and help remind them of that inner wisdom, inner strength, inner leader, whatever you want to call it, inside them. So the other thing it also means is I don't know what it's like to be Damon. I don't know what it's like to be my client. I only know what it's like to be me. So for me to say, I'm going to fix you, it's like acting like I know what's going on with you, and I don't. You know your experience. You know what's going on with you, not me. So the whole premise of coaching is like, okay, you are whole, you're resourceful, you know what's best for you, and I'm here to help pull it out. And what happens a lot in coaching is someone may come and their kind of you could call it inner belief, inner leader, whatever you want to call it, has gotten dim. They're having trouble hearing it. They're just hearing the negative stuff. They're really feeling stuck and not remembering everything they've done, who they are, what they can do. And so with coaching, part of the process, I believe, is also helping them hear that voice again, helping them, listen to that inner wisdom that they have inside and figure out what's getting in the way of them hearing it, what's getting in the way of them following it. And so that's, I think, the beauty and the magic of coaching. And I'm happy to give an example if that would be helpful.
Does it show up differently for somebody who's growing and doing really well, or maybe even pivoting, changing, compared to somebody who's just flat out, like you mentioned a minute ago, stuck?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. I mean, so when someone comes to coaching, it's because they're needing some support and making some kind of change, whether they want to take it to the next level, like they're wanting to take their job to the next level. They want to really, get that promotion or whatever. Or there's another reason, but they want to make some kind of change. They need some help. So if someone is wanting to go to that next level, they might need some gentle pushing, challenging, listening, working through things to figure out, how do I get there? So it may not be, maybe their voice is already very strong, but they're still not knowing, what do I need to do to get to that promotion? What is my next step? How do I take it to the next level? So it's through that questioning and thinking and reflection that the person does, they start to get the answers. So they know, okay, yeah, this is what I need to do, or I need to experiment a little bit and then I'll figure it out. So it may not be so dim, but they still need help seeing it, or listening to it and figuring out, okay, what am I supposed to do here? And getting that clarity.
Now, do you think that coaching is for everybody, or does it take a certain type of mindset for somebody to engage with a coach to be successful?
Coaching can work for everybody, but you have to be in that coachable space. So you have to be ready to invest the time and the effort. And you have to really want it. If someone signs you up for coaching, you don't want it, and and we could ask the best questions, but if you are not engaged in it, then and you're not seeing an issue or not wanting to work towards what someone signed you up for coaching for, it's not going to work. So it can be for everybody when they're in the right space for it and they're ready to do some work to make the change happen that they're seeking.
Let's take it back a little bit. You've had a pretty incredible journey, from building and leading global HR teams, guiding executives through major change, and now you relatively recently have pivoted into coaching. Walk us through a little bit about your personal journey.
So, as you mentioned, I've been in HR for over 20 years, and all kinds of threads of HR. But the common theme throughout has been coaching and consulting with leaders about their teams and their people. And loved it, and it's included things like, reorganizations, transforming their team, people development, talent management, people issues, compensation, all the whole gamut. And then I've also done a lot internationally. The last, 12 or so years of my last employer, it was focused on those things, but outside the US. In particular, my team and I worked with in-region HR teams and businesses on setting up new entities in new countries, closing down entities, mergers, acquisitions, HR initiatives, whatever business initiatives, primarily tied to growth or contraction. So all of those things were great. I love the working with the leaders and my team on these various pieces. And I decided I loved the one-on-one pieces of it, and I wanted to dive in more deeply on the coaching part of it. So for the last few years in my HR career, I got my coaching certification at the Hudson Coaching Institute and then started doing some deeper coaching than you can do as an HR person on the side. And my work was very supportive of it. And then I decided in the last year, I wanted to really just focus on that and consulting on my own. And it's been great. Like it's a slight pivot, but it's just building off of what I've been doing and bringing some of that experience into it, but also getting to work with deep people on a deeper level. And really, it's been so rewarding just to see the changes people are making through having, really that dedicated support and time to work on it.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in HR over the past couple of decades?
When I started, it wasn't first called personnel, but it wasn't too much before then. It was called personnel. So it was all about payroll, benefits, and just the very tactical things. And then, throughout the 20 years, it's become more and more strategic, more and more that business partner, and more things automated. And I think we'll continue to see that. And there still is that need for that human touch, that human connection, that human consulting, human coaching, that should never go away because we're talking about people and we're talking about organizations and teams. But it's definitely shifted more and more strategically because some of the more tactical things have become more automated.
And they probably will continue to with AI over the years. Now, I'm sure there's some listeners out there who have worked at or are currently working at global organizations or been in a company for a really long time and considering making that pivot to go out on their own. What was that experience like for you? Was there some anxiety there? Was there some conversations at home like, well, what happens if it doesn't work out? Or did you just jump right in and do it?
Well, there's, in full transparency, there was a change made for me with my work in terms of laid off, but I was thinking about it anyways. And
everything happened for a reason.
It happened for a reason. So it was, so it still is kind of, stressful is the wrong word, but anxiety provoking, but it's great. Like I feel like things shift in our lives. We learn certain things at different times to make us prepared for the next thing. And I feel like I have been, all of the experience that I've had to this point has prepared me for what I'm doing now. And I'm just taking it to the next level. So I guess you said advice for people doing it on their own. Do your research. It's kind of like with any career pivot, right? Do your research, talk to people, network, figure out, okay, what's your risk tolerance? what's going to be your backup plan. And then put structures and systems in place to make it you feel comfortable that you can do it. And then go for it. I mean, at a certain point, you just got to try it.
Like with me at baseball, my baseball career came to a kind of an abrupt end, and I was kind of locked into the identity of being a baseball player. And I was kind of like, well, what do I do next? What advice do you have for others who may be in a similar situation where they got let go um, from their job, and maybe they want to try something different? Maybe they're in accounting and they want to get into HR or get into sales. How do you help them? How would you coach them understand that they can make that pivot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing is getting clear as to what you want. Like, is it clear you want to do HR or finance or whatever? And what is it about it you like? So really diving in, what is it about it that you like and that you want? And and being clear on that and be a little broad if you can. Like I had a client the other day, she's like, I want to go into X, Y, and Z. And I said, why don't you, are you sure about that? Let's maybe look a little broader. And so we did. And she still ended up on that one path that she came to me with. It was a specific path within HR, but then she expanded herself into 2 or 3 other tracks too, because all those things had the pieces of the work that she wanted, the pieces that were meaningful to her. These other tracks, job-wise, had it. So the first thing I would say is figure out what you want, but also really kind of try to expand it to what about that space that you're looking to get into is appealing to you, and where else is that? Because the more broad you are, the better chances you're going to have of finding something that's meaningful to you or suitable for you. So that's the first thing I would do is figuring out what you want, and then I would also talk to people. Find out what it's like to be there, to be in these kind of functions or roles. So that's, networking, but really from an exploring standpoint. Also ask them, what kind of skills do I need? Knowing my background, what kind of skills do I need to develop or whatever to be able to be considered for this? And then the third thing, once you're kind of clear on that, I would also experiment as you can. And try, if it's a space where you can maybe volunteer or do a kind of internship or something, just casually, or dip your toe in it somehow. Try it, see how that feels, see what it's like. Maybe if you can shadow someone for a day or whatever, but try to experiment a little bit and see how that feels. So all those things. And then really, once you're clear is kind of where you want to try, if there's something you want to step into further, figure out how you can translate the skills you have already and you've used into skills they need. Is it, do you have them and it's just positioning it differently? Is it, you need to gain some new skills? So then how do you do that? Is it, can you get into a company doing what you used to do, but network and try to connect with the area that you want to go into, and know it's a company that is open to people switching positions and making it clear you're wanting to get into this other group once you're there and you're working on the skills to get there. So there's lots of different strategies, but I think it starts with becoming clear and really thinking about things broadly, networking, understanding, and experimenting.
Yeah, I was just going to recap that myself. So it looks like it starts with being clear, really trying to understand what where you want to go. 2, being, like you said, be broad, so you're not too narrow focused, because you might be, if you're curious, you might be surprised at what you learn. I really like the idea, the next 2, which is reach out to other people and have conversations with them to learn a little bit more. And then if possible, experiment, maybe take a volunteer role, or, even if you're working someplace, maybe ask your boss if you can shadow somebody in a different, organization, different department. I think that those are all great steps to help you. And then look at the skills you have, and if they're the right skill set, or if you need additional skill sets. Do you have, with the step 1, because I think this is always important, do you have any tips or advice for how to become more clear in what you want to do?
What is it you like about the place that interests you? Where else can you think of that it happens? Talking to people, and honestly sometimes looking at job postings. If you're someone that is visual and looking at things, like I had a client do this who she's like, I think I wanted this, but I like these skills. So she just spent some time looking at, I think it was Indeed she looked at, and pulling out job postings that sounded interesting to her. Gosh, this sounds interesting. And she ended up, and she took a fair amount of time to do it, but she was dedicated to it. And she just saw that she ended up having kind of 3 themes of jobs that were coming out. And and when we talked and dove into it, was where what she liked about, she was clear. These are the themes. These are the kinds of roles I would like. So, but she did it through just looking at what's out there. Let's see if there's anything else. I think those are the main things about just, exploring, looking what's out there, reading, seeing if there's themes that pop up for you, talking to people. But it comes down to, how do you learn? What's the best way for you to learn? And is it, some people like just through meeting people, talking to people, some it's reading, some it's listening to podcasts, just
some it's taking classes to learn.
Taking classes such as Learna. Exactly. I was thinking that, honestly.
Throw the plug there.
Yes, yeah. If you want to learn about management skills or whatever, what's available to you. So figure out how you learn and then tap into that to explore.
In all seriousness, I think that is very important what you said right there. People learn differently. And some people want to watch videos. Some people want to listen to podcasts. Other people want coaching or mentoring or taking classes. Find out what works for you. Don't push a rock up the hill. If one modularity is not right for you, find something that works best for you. I want to pivot a little bit, but it kind of along the same lines here. You talked about how HR became more strategic over the past 20 years. I think part of that is because people across all levels are really craving more meaning in their work. Why do you think that's happening more now than ever?
Well, I am seeing it in my coaching. People that want to make pivots or just get new jobs after, working on finding a job that meets their skill set. They want a job that they feel a connection to. They feel like, positive impact and has meaning for them. So I'm seeing it. And why now? I think, I think COVID really shifted the perspective for a lot of people about what's important to them and how they spend their time and what they want. And so I think that has really shifted some of the mindset for people of like, okay, I want something that's more meaningful. I just lived through this, this terrible time where it was just stressful and I had to recenter and now they want more. And it also could be, generational shifts as well. The workforce is changing, but I do think COVID plays a big part of that.
Change everything.
And really recentering on what's important for people.
How do you help your coaching clients from an individual perspective? In a moment, I want to talk about managers, but if an individual perspective, how do you help them come up with what's meaningful for them, or how they, to figure out what's most important for them when it comes to, especially, their profession?
Figure out where they are on things. If they're not clear on their values, we start there. What's important to you as a person? What's important to you in your life? What's important to you in your job? What do you value? Like, what do you want it to be like? So what do you value? And then having them reflect on, when did you feel like you were making a positive impact? What was that like? What did that feel like? What was there? What was in that space? And then there can always, there's, assessments they can take as well. I love the StrengthsFinder assessment because it's simple and easy, and that could guide them to more what they're good at, but it could also help them find, kind of what's, in some ways meaningful to them. So it's really just a lot of reflection and values work. And also, I think part of it also is looking at how they're spending their time now, right? So what's important to them, and looking at, I love this one saying, look at your calendar and your checkbook to find out how you're spending your time. Are you living according to your values, right? Are you spending your time and your money on the things that are in alignment with what is important to you? And so that's also a place to look of, okay, here's my values. Here's what I'm doing. How do I right size it? Where do I want it to be? So I think all those things together can help. And then figuring out where have they thrived? Where have they felt they were in their sweet spot in prior jobs? and what is appealing to them as they look and think about future roles. And then talking to people too. Again, it all comes back to how the person reflects and how they learn.
I think doing a calendar audit is huge. Even export from Outlook, whatever calendar you're using, and just kind of go through it. I think a lot of people are really shocked and surprised where their time is spent. So that's really important. I like the checkbook part. I haven't done that one. I'll probably see, who knows, right? I mean, I'll have to look into that. Now, when it comes to meaning, let's look at it from a manager's perspective.
Yes.
What can a manager do to help their people feel like their work really means something, is matterful?
Helping an employee see the meaning in their work and the impact they're having is such a tool for leaders. So important. And this is, I think, especially important now too, based on where the economy is or going, we don't know. But people are getting laid off. I'm sure budgets are tight. Things are tighter, right? But it doesn't take away the fact that people want to still do impactful work. They want to have meaning, and they want to feel like they're making a difference in their job. And it's a way to help increase that engagement, even at times where maybe you can't give them the big bonuses or new jobs aren't opening up to be filled, but you can still help feed that engagement piece. So what can managers do? It all starts with knowing your people. And that is such a critical, important space and important thing for managers to know. You don't have to know like them in and out. That's really probably inappropriate, but you need to know what's important to them in their job. Like what makes them tick? What's important to them? And there's lots of ways you can do that. And then once you know what's important to them, what brings them meaning, then you can help find those opportunities for them to do that kind of work. And let me get some tips for helping, if you don't mind, helping managers.
Yeah, do it, please.
Find that.
That's what we're here
for. First thing is listen for the values. Listen to what the employees say. So this is, and all the tips I'm going to give are none of them going to take a ton of time, but they're going to take intentionality. So listen to what your employees say in terms of like asking specific questions. So how was your weekend? What are you doing this weekend? What did you do last weekend? So you'll hear values in that. Like you and I could do it if you want. And, if you tell me what you did last week, I'm sure I could figure out some values that come
Last week, we went to Wally's baseball game. It was his second T-ball game of all time. And Lucy had a play date and with her friend Bobo, and they hung out at our house. That's what we did.
First of all, you're smiling the whole time you're talking about it. So that sounds like it's something that you're liking. And so you clearly value your kids and time with them. You clearly value exercise and your son getting out and doing something. It also sounds to me like you value, you're fostering friendships with your daughter and her friends and having them engaging with them. They're at your play date, sounds like it was probably at your house. So, and you clearly enjoy it just by the way you talked. It was very clear you were enjoying that. So those are some, family and engaging with others and helping kids get exercise are definitely things that I'm pulling that you probably value. So listening for values, and then that opens a door, in terms of building trust. It depends how well you know the person.
Let's stay there for 1 second, because listening is so critical and it's hard. I've seen managers, leaders ask questions like, "What did you do last weekend?" And then the next thing they do, they're checking their emails. And it just loses trust, loses respect. Do you have one specific tip before we move on to the next step about how to lock in and be a better listener?
Being focused about it, putting your phone down when you ask a question, being intentional, like looking in the eyes. I honestly will say to my husband, I need to see your eyeballs. Like,
I know that one. I know that one.
You know that one too. Yeah. Show me those eyeballs.
I heard it last night.
Yeah. So I think that's just focusing on what they're saying and then letting them know you heard them. Like, wow, you can ask a follow-up question, or that sounds really great, or how fun is that? Just responding in some way that they know you heard them. But the first thing is putting down whatever you're doing to take a look at them and talk to them.
That's great.
Yeah. So to go to a couple other tips, if you're open to it, from sharing about how to find meaning. I think the other thing, that managers can do to help figure out what would be impactful and meaningful for their employees, is to intentionally build certain questions into their routines. Again, this is not like causing a whole other hour's worth of work, but you think about what are some small things I can do to help make sure I understand what is important to this person in their work. One thing I love is in a one-on-one, in all of your one-on-ones, set things up with your team that, okay, for the first 5 minutes of our one-on-ones going forward, I want to hear what your professional high and what your professional low was between now and when we met last. Highs and lows. And tell them I'm going to time box it to 5 minutes because we have lots of other stuff we have to talk about. And listen, and you will hear themes over time. It's going to force them to think about it, right? But also hear what they have to say. If they say what a professional high was for them and it's a consistent thing throughout, okay, they like that. It's enjoyable. Give them more of those opportunities or dive in further and find out more about that. Professional low, good for you to know that, period, right? As a manager and leader, you need to know what the lows are. And what can you do to manage those things? And there may be things that come up like, wow, that is fascinating. I want to hear more about that, but we got to get on to X, Y, and Z. Let's go grab coffee later and talk more about it or put that on the agenda for next time. But, ask those questions. That's a great way to find out what's important to them.
So, Kerry, if you're asking these questions in your one-on-one and your professional low happens to be about whether it's the relationship with the manager they're speaking with or maybe the task they're put on, what tips or advice do you have for leaders who maybe aren't great at receiving feedback?
Listen. Don't get defensive. Just listen. Take it in. Try to be curious. And just keep your mouth shut. If you're not good at getting feedback, at receiving it, just receive it, listen, and thank them if you can. And then come back to them. If you're not ready to ask more about it in the moment, come back to them next time. Say, I'd love to talk more about this. I just need to process it for a bit. But getting defensive or blaming or whatever is not going to serve anybody. But listening and open, keeping that door open for us you to talk about it later with them in the next one-on-one. That it's important to hear what you have to say. And I need to process it. And if you're right there in the moment and processing it and feel like you can have a calm conversation, just get curious and ask about it. And then, see what you can do in the moment without being defensive. But the best thing is just to receive it and think about it and process, and then come back to them as to what you're going to do differently, or maybe it's a misunderstanding. Who knows what the feedback was or is? That can only help in the thank God they're telling you versus not telling you and starting to leave somewhere else, and that's a sign of trust too. If they feel like they can tell you something, that's a good sign. That's a sign of trust. And that's a key part of a manager-employee relationship.
I agree 100% with that. And you'll erode that trust if you do get defensive and jump down their throat. And I've said this a million times on this podcast that receiving feedback is really the fuel for growth, for everybody. And so you want to keep the door open to that for a manager. One other area, maybe you could speak to this a little bit about eroding trust. Like, I believe one-on-ones are super important. But one thing that erodes trust is constantly moving and canceling one-on-ones.
It does. It can, because the person could interpret it as, okay, I guess I'm not as important as what they need to do or talk, or whoever they need to meet that's taking my space. So it can. So some things are unavoidable. And I think a good technique for that is to say, okay, I want to talk to you. I'm sorry. I need to focus on this. Let's make sure we do X, Y, and Z, but stop canceling, making the time and doing it. It's, prioritizing it more than the others. And maybe it's the cadence that is wrong. Maybe you have one-on-ones weekly and you just can't do it. And you got to step back and move them to every other week, but then you got to stick to them, or stick to them as much as you can. Or find other ways to say, I can't meet tomorrow, but I can meet Thursday. In the meantime, can you send me a summary of what you've been working on and what you have for me? So you still tell them, I want to hear you. I want to know what's going on, and I need to wait until Friday, but let's talk Friday. So it's just all about them knowing they want it. You want to still hear from them, and making sure you find a way to do that and do it consistently.
Yeah, I think that's important to identify the cadence, because if you have one-on-ones booked every week and then it gets canceled every other week, and that goes for regular meetings too. I mean, I remember about a year ago, one of our sales leaders, it just seemed like he was always canceling or moving meetings all the time. And I know that the rest of the team was probably either getting frustrated or just didn't believe that those meetings were even going to happen. So, I mean, that's really important. Do you have any other great questions that you ask during a one-on-one session?
So I have this practice that I have done and I've also encouraged managers to do, and it's called a stay interview. I don't know if are you familiar with the stay
I
interview?
am.
You
But I
are?
think it's
Okay.
great. Yeah.
It's great. And
A lot of
it,
our listeners aren't, so let's talk about
okay,
that.
let's talk about it. Yeah. So it's the first time I started encouraging managers to use it was during the technology boom, and I'm in the Bay Area, so a lot of at that time a lot of people were leaving, right? And so anyway, during the technology boom, a lot of people were leaving their jobs, and I was working in the tech space and as an HR business partner in the tech space at the time. So we encourage managers to do these stay interviews, and what it is you ask key questions of your top performers or people you cannot, afford to lose. And it's questions around, what do you like? Some are basic and you got to tailor it to make it work for the person.
Basic's fine.
Basic is great. Yeah. So what do you like about your job? What's frustrating about your job? If you could change something about it, what would it be? I love this one question. If you won the lottery, and quit your job, what would you miss about your work? Finding, and if you could change one thing, what can I do better to support you? There's a whole list of questions, but being really intentional about what is it that makes them tick? What's it that makes them stay? What can I do as your manager to help things, and your leader to help things be more meaningful for you, to make it be someplace you want to be? And then and some of the stuff maybe you may not be able to change, and then being honest about it. So, okay, let me look into that. I don't know if I can do that, but what else can I do? What else can we do together? So it's really about being intentional and having those conversations. So what's going to keep them. And if you can't meet it and they're pretty clear they want X, Y, and Z, then it also gives you a heads up. They're probably going to be leaving soon. So start having them document what they're doing. Start having your own research out there so you can find someone to replace them if they're a key member of your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel a lot of times we don't have enough bench strength and we're not doing enough documentation and somebody gets up and leaves. But one of the things I like about the stay interview that you brought up right there is it helps get you ahead of the game on this. And there are times where you change things and make it better. I've also found though, if people give you all this feedback and all these recommendations, you don't necessarily have to do something about it all the time, but you should at least give them every once in a while. If you do something about it, say, hey, thank you for this advice. We made this change or everything like that too.
Yeah. I see. So you're saying, I heard you, I see you, I'm acting. And that's why, even with employee surveys, it's so important to go back. I heard you, I see what you said, and we're doing something about it, or we're not doing something about it, but I still heard you. And here's what, our decision making.
So one group of employees that I think have it really tough are middle managers. Middle managers, they're really stretched, if they got stuff coming from leadership and then they have their direct reports. And a lot of great middle managers I've found, they want to build that trust and connection with their team. So what is one simple mind shift or change they can make to help continue to build trust and connection outside of just the one-on-ones we talked about?
Authenticity is something that is so important, especially in that middle manager space. And so I think the more a manager, especially the middle manager, can just be authentic and genuine and honest, but perfect, and toe the line corporate wise as well, but with their team, to say, what, this is hard, guys. I get it. This is hard. This is where we are. And this is where I want us to go. And I believe in us, or whatever. But the more someone is authentic with someone, I think the greater the trust that is built. And also the more you allow others to be kind of authentic and true with them, the more greater trust that would be. I'll never forget an example I had with a wonderful manager of mine. I was really frustrated about something. And I told her, I was really frustrated. She's like, no, tell me, I want to hear it. I'm like, I don't know if you want to hear all this. And she said, no, I need to hear it. I want to hear it. And it wasn't against her. It was a broader situation thing. And so I just told her, and she's like, thank you. That was—
How did it make you feel to be able to get off your chest?
It felt great. Oh, it felt great. And it felt like I was in a safe space. She made it safe for me. She's like, I'm not going to get mad at you. I just need to know this so I can help fix it. And we can help, because, I was playing an integral role in her team. And so it gave me that confidence that she wanted the best for me and for the team and was going to do what she could. And she just wanted to hear it. And it felt great to be heard. And it helped really build that trust even more. And I didn't complain to her all the time after that. I just got it off. She knew where I was, and then she did what she could. And it just really helped solidify that trust even more.
Now, you told me in the pre-interview, I don't think this is the same story, but that you had a manager who really saw something in you and they gave you a push.
Yeah.
What was that and that stayed with you moving forward?
Yeah. So she saw, she understood my strengths, and she understood what was meaningful to me at the time. So, and again, and I want to reiterate for people listening, you don't have to be having these deep philosophical conversations
all the
with
time,
people, nor should you in many cases. But she understood what was important to me. She listened and she pointed me. So the situation is, I had got my MBA while working and in HR, and there was a job hosting for a new program at my company where you could rotate across the different areas of HR, and it was for MBA grads. And I didn't really think twice about it because I'd been in HR for a while, and like, what am I going to be learning here? Why would I do this? She said, Kerry, did you see this? And I said, yeah. And she said, no, she said, Kerry, you should consider this, because she's like, this is going to help you dive in more deeply and learn more. She knew I liked to learn because I was doing this MBA. She also knew that I was ready for something else. And she said, it's going to help you learn more. This could lead to other things. It's going to give you great exposure. I'm like, oh, I hadn't even thought about it. And so I explored it further, and it ended up being one of the, pivotal pieces in my career where it really gave me some more exposure and helped get me to that next level. And it will forever be grateful to her. And it was a quick thing, but she knew what was important to me. She knew where I was in my career. And the other thing is, she was open to losing a member of her staff for something that was going to be more meaningful for me. And, so she was open to supporting me in that. And she'd had to replace me. And she saw the bigger picture, and I will forever be grateful to her for that.
And that will always stay with you. And it kind of reminds me, the part I like the most of that whole story. Well, first of all, that she knows you and opened up your mind to something that you didn't even see.
Exactly.
She connected you going to get your MBA with learning and this opportunity.
Yeah.
But the second part, I interviewed a guy, wonderful, Gary Ridge, he used to be the CEO of WD-40, and he talked about how leaders need to get out, how they protect their own comfort zone sometimes.
Yeah.
And what it sounds like your leader was doing was saying, look, I might lose this person somewhere else in the organization, and that's uncomfortable for me, and I got to backfill that. But instead of putting themselves first, she did what a great leader does. She put her team members first, and said, I'll figure out how to backfill that later. And look what that did for you in your career, and I'm sure for your organization overall.
Oh yeah. And she and I have interacted since in various roles that I've been in. It's, that foundation is still there. It's great. She really, was not thinking of herself, but thinking of how can I help Kerry.
How can a leader who maybe thinks of himself too much instead of their team either recognize that that's what they're doing, or find other ways to get out of their comfort zone, let's say, for the best interest of their team?
Well, I think you mentioned a key part is feedback, right? And if they're not getting it from their manager or team directly, a fabulous tool for that is a 360 assessment. You'll get common themes from there. So if he or she is not listening to their team or putting the team first, it'll come out in an assessment, a 360 assessment. So I think that's a great way to just get the data, because sometimes if people aren't seeing it, they may not believe it, but you get it. You get the data. It's there. It's hard to deny it, that if it's a common theme that's coming out from everybody. So that's one step I think that could be taken. Another one, if they're not seeing their team, is mentoring. I mean, I think, talking to someone that's really good at that, and having, a relationship, even if it's just going to lunch every month or whatever, but being intentional about talking about it. And hopefully this person's manager would raise it to the individual that you need to think about your team more too. But if that's happening, finding a mentoring relationship. And it could be, like I said, informal, a lunch, but talk about what do they do? So, get some tips from them, hearing, someone you trust that they would trust that they could bounce ideas off of, or that could share ideas with them. And then I'm trying to think. So I think 360 mentoring and then just listening, really trying to listen to feedback, listen to what you're hearing, listen to what's coming up from customers. Listen, see how your patterns, look at your patterns. If you're, and they can look at your day, how much of my day is spent on focusing on things I need and want versus what my team wants.
Here's a question that I got stuck on one time. Somebody asked me, and so maybe it's a curveball for you too, but a lot of this requires self-awareness.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you have any coaching clients. I have some people who come to me saying they want mentorship, but they really lack self-awareness. Is that something that you think you can help build in people, or is that more innate?
Oh, no, I think we can help build it. And it's based on feedback, feedback and then being open to it.
You have to be open to it. You can't be a know-it-all.
Yeah, right. You have to be open to it. And however the feedback comes, it could be, that's why I love the 360s. It could come though through one-off feedback from direct reports. It could come from, but you can, I believe you can build self-awareness as you start to hear things and listen to feedback from other people. But if you're at a certain point too, lack of self-awareness is going to smack someone in the face, right? They're not going to get to go up to a certain point because they're doing things that are damaging themselves. And so coaching can really play a role with some of that too. If coaching from the manager, here's what I'm seeing, here's what's happening, really giving that feedback directly to their employee. And then potentially coaching with an outside coach too. But that manager needs to be involved as well, making sure they're getting that feedback. But at a certain point, it's likely going to stop the person because they're going to come up against a wall because they're not understanding how they're coming off and they're offending people or whatever is happening.
Yeah, the two things I see the most often that stall people's career, really very sharp people, are lack of self-awareness and poor communication skills.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to move into leadership. Well, Kerry, we're already at 45 minutes. This has actually gone by very quickly for me. You're awesome.
Okay.
Before we wrap up, what is something that we haven't discussed that you want to leave our audience with? Yeah,
this is going to sound silly, but I think it's really helpful for leaders, especially if you're a leader new to a team or you're struggling or something with your team. I love those kind of team assessments, like the StrengthsFinders or anything like that. But I like that one because you get to understand how someone works at a high level, and it opens up the conversation. And it'll help you as a manager know how to manage that person a little better based on some natural innate strengths of their own and what you have, and it will help them manage you better as a manager. So there is so much value in really just understanding more about your team and working styles and strengths and whatever. And that can open up conversations to many other things and help make it a better leader and manager experience for you and for your team. I can give so many examples of how it works, even from individual.
Well, give us one. Let's give us one example before we close out.
I will give you one for my coaching. So this one woman, she had gotten her strength. She took StrengthsFinders, or Clifton Strengths is what it's now called. And she came out, and two of her top 5 strengths were discipline and consistency. And one of the things she and I have been coaching on is the chaotic space her team was in. She was an individual contributor, and she kept saying, "Oh my gosh, things keep changing. I can't get my footing. It's just chaotic." It was really hard for her, and she's having a tough time. She saw her strength, and she had an epiphany. She's like, "This is why I'm having such a hard time. Why I'm going home exhausted every night, because my top 2 strengths are all about structure and consistency, and I don't have that here in this team." So that was an epiphany for her. And then through coaching, we said, okay, how else can you look at this? Because she's on this team right now. She's got to find a way to make it work, right? And at that moment. And so she switched her mindset and said, yeah, they need me on this team. I can bring the consistency and the structure to this team. I am their secret weapon. I can really help them here because it's natural for me. I love it and it's great. So that really was a shift for her and helped her understand why she was really reacting so much. So that was she loved that. I can give another example if you want really quick for a manager.
Do it.
Employee.
Let's do it.
So this is another personal example. I had a manager, her top 5 thing was activator. I mean, she liked to move. She got things done. I loved working with her because if she said she was going to do something, she did it, and she did it within 5 minutes. And so I had to learn that if I wanted her not to act, I had to be very clear. I'd say, thank you. I'm just going to share something with you for awareness, not something for you to do. I got it here. I got to take care of it. You don't need to do anything, but you just need to be aware. And so she's like, oh, okay. So she wouldn't do it, but I had to be explicit. And I also knew that if she said she was going to do something, she would do it. And then I did similar things with members of my team. I know some of them I knew from their StrengthsFinders, they needed time to reflect and think and whatever. So I would send them information in advance to read it. And then they'd be ready for our conversation the next day.
Yeah, small things make a big difference. And, even like you said, simple as well, right?
Oh, yeah. This is not a difficult tool. That's one of the things I like about it. There's lots of things out there, but this is just simple and it's inexpensive. And I can also help any leader if they want to facilitate discussion or whatever on it too. But their HR team might be able to do it. But it's just an easy, great tool out there.
Well, this has been great. And I love the passion you bring behind this and the stories and the tips. And I'm just going to recap a little bit about what we talked about today. We talked about finding meaning in work and how over the last 20 years, HR has played a more strategic role in the world, as well as the importance of finding clarity, which kind of goes back to the meaning. We touched on one-on-ones and some great open-ended questions you could ask. You're passionate about tools and leveraging things like StrengthsFinders, and then career pivots, making your leap, even if it was forced, into your own business.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a little bit about the difference between coaching and leading a little bit there. And also, I think it's important about intentionality and curiosity. I think that those two are so important. All right. Well, I'm excited to see you at the assembly coming up,
Yes.
for our kids' school.
Yes.
But for those of you who are not going to see you, Kerry, where can our audience connect with you at?
Yes, they can find me through my website, kerryrockers.com. They can find me on LinkedIn. You can search me on, there's not that many Kerry Rockers out there. And I think I'm the only one that has the website, kerryrockers.com. So you can find me in all those places. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you. I'd love to help you and your teams.
For all of you out there who got value out of this, I'm sure you did. Do me a favor. Think of somebody who could use some of the tips that Kerry's spoken about. Maybe somebody who's in HR, or maybe somebody who's a leader who's struggling connecting with their team members, or maybe somebody who doesn't even see the value in helping their team members find meaning in their work. This will really help them. So share this episode with them. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning. Have a great day. See you next time. Thanks, Kerry.
The big thing is I got a second story out of it with a photo, which is very rare in the paper like the New York Times. And that really started the